The Bulk Truth is live again. Royce, welcome.
Hi, Steve.
How's it going?
That's a beautiful day.
Yeah,
Got up.
it's kind of weird. We had this cold spell, and I was like, is it really summer coming? I don't know.
Every day is getting closer. Enjoy it while we can.
We're having all these diverse temperatures, which is a nice segue into if I was to ask you, Royce, for a comprehensive list of dry materials that your veracity or your diamond your could measure, what would that list be? Can you have a song that kind of you sing?
I do, and it all gets summed up at the very top. If it's dry and it will flow, we can measure.
So that would mean gravel, that would mean pellets, that would mean corn, that would mean grain.
Very diverse. Plastic pellets, pet kibble, but yeah, the list continues to grow. There's things that we maybe haven't necessarily measured yet, but when we encounter those, then we usually put them through a bench test to just confirm. But so far, so good.
What about rare earths? Are you measuring dry rare earths?
We haven't done that yet. So, I mean, we are getting into like some bentonite clay, some gypsum, those type products. But as far as rare, I don't think we have yet, but we are getting some interest in some very high value, very low flow, low volume type products that can be a little more specialized in an application.
It's interesting how many different times, because today, this first time I've known, you've got petrochemicals here in the notes, and I'm going, what's that? That's kind of new, but that's the plastic pellets.
That's the plastic pellets. So they're manufacturing those plastic pellets and they extrude them and then they'll put them on rail cars, and typically they're going to be moved pneumatically. But when they're moving those, they're coming out of a rotary lock or an airlock, if you will, and when they drop through is an opportunity to measure that flow rate and give them a true weight in process.
So last week we were looking at installation pictures of this, and so some of the I've always envisioned everything happens inside this industrial process plant, but you had a truck on the outside with a mobile conveyor belt going through a place where it drops to the diamond, the veracity diamond, and then goes into another container. And I was like, this can happen anywhere. This device can be used anywhere. It doesn't mean that you have probably most cases are big industrial places, right?
Sure. So if it's anywhere that there's a pipe or a chute, it can be at a transfer point. So we can install directly into that pipe or chute. But if you're transferring between, say you mentioned the conveyors, right? So it's coming onto a conveyor or off of a conveyor. Those are opportunities for installation. So with the newest veracity diamond, one of the reasons it was invented was because of the very limited clearance. So real estate's pretty precious, especially if you're retrofitting into an existing facility. And so that versatility is really suiting us well for finding a way to really match what the customer is needing. And many times our recommendation, it starts by understanding, what they're trying to achieve, more about their facilities, them sharing photos and dimensions and clearances. And then from there, we select the product options that would potentially do the best job for them.
Wow. So, our villain in the CADARO story is the guesstimation, the everything kind of being guessed or timed. And it's not, well, it's the best we could do until now your solution is, right? But when you compare and contrast, it's a big deal.
It is. And all those systems, and the one thing that's consistent is the inconsistency. So that it happens every time. So, creating the digital visibility to what is actually occurring, that's what these sensors do. So you see the numbers on the screen, it's hard to ignore. So if it's starting and stopping, if you're seeing variability of flow, that normally people are happy to see that because now they know what to do about it. and then how to take an action to improve their overall performance and improve their bottom lines.
So the traditional methods, the old way, is like stopwatches, counters. In here is amps, and we haven't ever talked about amps before. How does that work?
Yeah, so it's pretty common that people are watching that they have on their screens. They can see the load on a motor, and so they use amperage, and so that's what they're accustomed to seeing. So that's an indicator as far as where they're possibly operating. It has a range of as far as accuracy, but again, they were looking for something digital to have on a screen, so that's what they had before. They had something like these flow sensors that then takes them to the next level of knowing precisely what's occurring.
What's not on your list is hammers, listening.
Yeah, so when it comes to inventory, yes, that still can be the norm. If they have material in a bin and they may be out tapping on the bin to see where's that level at, and from a listening standpoint, just knowing how things typically sound as far as operating, and normally people are going to know when it's running full or running empty. Definitely has a different sound, but to understand in between would be a little more difficult.
So I'm seeing here another new term. Man, today's just all sorts of new terms for me. Precise gravimetric. I've never heard that word before.
Gravimetric.
Yeah.
So I think I'm assuming that is in reference to just gravity flow. So
yeah, of course, but that sounds more sophisticated, doesn't it? So this is for everything from fine seeds and to plastic pellets. So I guess that would be another gravimetric. That's another word for your flow.
There you go.
Look at us. We're just making all sorts of headlines here. So the bottom line is consistent data making better business decisions and better business processes.
Correct. The fact that you can accurately measure, now you can proactively manage. So where they've normally been reactive in what they do, so they get to the end of the day, they get to the end of the shift, there's nothing you can do about it. You just look at where the numbers settled out and try to do better tomorrow. But with this, you have an opportunity to be proactive as far as making adjustments through the process that will help impact the result and not be the aftermath of the result.
And at the end of the day, you've got accurate data, or actually accurate reports that are ready to turn in.
Correct. Yeah. So in processing, it's very normal to generate the data and information that we're creating into their internal systems. So many plants already have their standard platform, so they're not looking for something different. They just want to integrate the information and the numbers in, and then from there it goes into the normal reporting process.
So, when you think about the Veracity Diamond and who should know about it, but the people who appreciate it the most, who have adopted it, who's the one person that really appreciates this when it gets installed?
I think that's a really good question. So at the operational level, operators, obviously, right? It's going to make it should make their life easier and better, so they can sit and they're monitoring, and if they make an adjustment or make a change, they can see it in real time. So from an operational standpoint, that's the benefits for them. But then as you go up the line, and if you're thinking about a CFO, or you're thinking about somebody that's responsible, a plant manager, they're responsible for the bottom line. They're responsible for the end result. And so not only do they have the visibility, but they can see how good they're doing or where they have areas for improvement. And so it's probably just a little bit different based on the seat that you're in as far as what it means to you and what's most important.
It'd be a good conversation, the number of seats and what the data means to each individual seat.
Correct.
Yeah, the guy that sometimes they have to get out of their little office or their little area and be in the place to go turn it on and off, right? So they're,
Yeah, that's pretty normal today. So I mean, if they're manually making adjustments or manually doing something, and what we've seen with this technology is now they're actually it's moving them into the office. So in cases where they were outside doing some of the manual processes, now they've integrated with cameras. They can integrate it into the office. So if from a processing standpoint, they're seeing how it's operating. They may make adjustments as far as additives or something that they're doing in process. But if I think we've talked about it, loading, and so that's definitely a place that it was manual and out in the elements, and many times it's being moved into an office where the person operating the scale is setting there at the scale and can run the whole loading loadout from the office.
well, think of the evolution now of the reporting. It's going from a clipboard with manual stuff that's turned in maybe once a week or at the end of the day. And then we're talking about seats a while ago. So that data has already moved upstream to a couple of seats, has it not?
It has, and I have to chuckle because there's a couple examples now that I've been on calls, and I think about the clipboard and them handing their numbers in, but there's been several examples that accounting sends them the numbers and said, "Well, here's what you actually did," and so sometimes they're trying to reconcile their inventories, and the numbers don't match what's operationally been on the floor of the plant versus what's based on inventory and what's in accounting, what should be there. There's generally a disconnect, and trying to reconcile what is that and when did that occur.
We haven't ever talked about it, but what's you're offering is a way to protect reputations, to protect integrity, so to speak, because imagine being told what your report should say from someone who wasn't in the room. Imagine the tension, imagine the confusion, and there's not a lot of clarity. It's like, we need to audit this. Oh, great. I've already done the work, and then we got to go back and do an audit on top of this.
Right. Yeah. So this is a missing tool. It's the best way to really describe it is tools like these flow sensors enable them to do a better job and potentially address, what you described as conflict or concern that, and as far as the quality of the work or the quality of the product, I could only envision that somebody, if you're blending something or you're creating something, if there's variability in the system, how much variability is there in the end product? And, even though on the average, all the ingredients went in over a period of time, but each piece did, is it the same ratio for each piece? So just opportunities for thinking about how things could be improved.
Well, you'd buy a bag of stuff, you read the ingredients, what you expect in there, not realizing that unless they have your system in place, it should be listed as some variation of this based on a hammer and a guess, right?
Yeah. And I would expect if they've got that analysis, then more than likely it's pretty accurate. So
yeah,
but not there's some processes that don't have to be quite that level, right? And do that assessment, but still have the desire to be providing the best quality, consistent product for their customers at all times.
So ultimately, just like any business that finds itself right now needing to operate more efficiently to be improve their processes, often automation and other systems are implemented to improve efficiency and profitability, et cetera. And this is your solution to help this industry in a place that they have blind spots.
Correct. Yeah. So accurate, consistent measurements is really what we're trying to provide. And then we like to refer to it as, from that, they can enable the automation. So today where they're automating maybe off of estimates and things that we discussed as far as a time or counter or amps on a motor, and now they're doing it on real time flow rates and inline weights. And so that's just going to help them be able to not only automate, but improve their overall performance.
All right. So I learned some new words and some new things today, like what was it? Gravimetric, plastic, plastic beads. We never talked about that before. Petrochemicals. Yeah, and then amps. Those are my three takeaways today. Three new takeaways. And I've been interrogating you on this stuff for a long time now.
Yeah, and the only thing we didn't cover was processed grains. So flour, powders. I mean, that's some of the more finer type products are in processing. So we're getting more interest in those applications and initial installations, and thus far things look very good.
All right. So I'd like to talk sometime about seats, how many seats there are, and what that persona looks like in each of those seats, and what's important to them.
Sure.
It'd be all different. And then what was the other thing that I wanted to do? The diverse materials. Okay. Today I learned some new materials. I'm sure there's some more. So I'd like to know the whole list of all the materials so far that you guys have helped companies measure, have confidence, protect reputations, automation, all the things, right?
Yeah. Well, as you're into processing some of these materials, I mean, it started out as oats, but oat groats, oat hulls, each stage of the process, and the densities of those materials can vastly differ. And so it gets pretty interesting that you start with a common denominator as far as an ingredient, but it's fractionalized and can be very important at each level, right? To understand, your overall yield, results, profitability. And so to be able to focus in specifically on a protein or fat, etc.
Wow. All right. I learned some more today, Royce. You're a good teacher. Bulk Truth, where we learn of how to run the business better, protect reputations by using the measuring power and automation provided by the Veracity Diamond and other bulk dry sensor measuring materials. It's dry and it flows. CADARO is who you should go to. All right, Royce, any last words?
No, it's been good. Thanks.
All right, good job. And that's a wrap.